Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to yet another Tech Ambrosia stream. This one's, I think, gonna be, I hope it's gonna be fun. It's hopefully the start of a series that's gonna help me grind through my graphics cards and get them all, either shown off or benchmarked or something, and then get them into storage for my upcoming move next year. This is, I have to look up the acronym that I used. This is episode 1 of cards I probably won't do a video about because I'm bad at YouTube and I need to produce simpler videos. That's what that whole acronym means. So I thought the first card to look at in this series of cards that probably won't get a dedicated video is the as I almost said, the GTX 1090. It's the Quadro GP100 that I was going to kind of clickbait as the GTX 1090 because it's got some interesting hardware specs. But honestly, once I got it in my hands and actually started testing it and working with its drivers and working with its hardware limitations, especially its artificially limited power budget, its total board power, it's not a 1090. Not even close. I don't know if it's even going to be faster than a 1080 Ti. And obviously there is a 1090 already. It's called the Titan XP. NVIDIA did that already. So I still thought it was kind of interesting to look at because it is a sort of unique card in the Pascal pantheon. And yes, this is a Pascal card. GP100 is the original die designation for Pascal. And you may recognize that naming convention if you're paying attention to NVIDIA's enterprise products, because GP100 is the enterprise die. It's not the consumer die, which means it uses HBM. So this is a GPU that has, instead of 11 gigabytes of GDDR5X or whatever it was on the 1080 Ti, it's got 16 gigabytes of HBM, or is it HBM2? I don't remember. I'd have to look at the specs again, but 16 gigs of HBM. It's quite an interesting card, and of course, because it's Pascal, the amount of memory it can access is also tied to its number of shader, SM groups, its shader multipliers and shader multiplexers, and then also its ROPs. So it has a heavily boosted render output pipeline count over even the Titan XP, which is itself quite a bit stronger than the 1080 Ti. So I think it's an interesting card to look at, and yeah, it's a little more modern than what we look at on this channel, but I still think it's kind of fun, and hopefully you agree. So let's say hi to chat, and then we'll flip over to the machine. I've got it on the test bench here in the PCI Express test bench with the 5800X 3D. All right, so we've got Ryzen 9 3800 XT. It says it looks like a modern day GPU. It's almost. I mean, it's about 8 years old. Clarjon One Plus says hello, how you doing? Welcome to the stream, Jack68K. Hello, welcome back to the stream. David Starbuck says, metal. Yeah, it's pretty great. And I8386SX is here, says hello, welcome. This is slightly newer than a 386. Let's take a look at it. Let me pull up the desk cam. It's my unregistered bench cam. And yeah, it's fairly modern, So the workstation cards nowadays from NVIDIA are the RTX series. You have the RTX A whatever, RTX T whatever, or no, it's the Quadro RTX, then the RTX A series, and the RTX Eta generation, RTX Eta generation for the workstation cards. I believe they've dropped the Quadro name. Maybe they haven't. But this is still a classical Quadro. It's got the all black case with the bright lime green accents on it. It says Quadro in silver text. This is the thing. It is a Quadro. I've got 4 display ports out on the back, as well as a DVI port because it is Pascal. Pascal still had support for DVI. But yeah, this is so I thought. You see we've got the power plug in here, and I thought, looking at this thing, oh yeah, it's probably EPS 12 volt, right? It's a workstation card. Why wouldn't it be EPS 12 volt? Usually PCI Express power goes in up here. and of course, being very similar to a 1080 Ti in terms of die size, number of shaders, power demands, I figured, you know, why wouldn't it at least have an 8-pin and a 6-pin like some 1080 Ti's do? No, it's instead of having a single EPS 12 volt, this is a single PCI Express 8-pin, so we lose out about 25 watts on the total TDP there. But we're well down from like what we know a top of the line, you know, GP102 could pull, being that the 1080 Ti was quite good at you know, sucking down amps and getting higher clocks. As a result, this I think hovers around 1750, 1790 megahertz in normal operation. You can undervolt it a little bit, just a smidge, which makes it run cooler and helps keep it locked at its maximum boost clock. But its maximum boost clock is way down from a 1080 Ti, unfortunately. So let's hop into the machine and take a look at what we're working with. David Starbucks says, wow, those things are pricey on eBay still. Yes, they are. This is a card I thought maybe I could do a little quick review on before I use it for what I want to use it for. Because this thing has a trick. This is the only Pascal die that has FP16 acceleration for machine learning. So, as you're probably familiar, on the consumer dies for NVIDIA and AMD to a lesser extent, AMD's in a less dominant position, so they don't hamper this quite as much as NVIDIA does. But on the consumer dies, FP32 is basically your full speed full speed arithmetic on your GPU, and that's single precision. And then FP64 is double precision. And on the consumer dies, it is, I don't know if it's done at a die level or if it's done at the driver level or the VBIOS level. It's something like that. At this point, like, NVIDIA encrypts their VBIOSes and stuff. Like, it's real shady in the GPU market. But the FP64 performance is artificially limited. And so you have a base amount of performance in FP32, and logically, your FP64 performance should be about half that, because you have to load up 2 FP32 registers to do FP64 math, right? On consumer dies, that's artificially limited. I think at first it was like 1/8 the performance, and I think modern cards are like 1/64th or something. It's ridiculous how much the consumer cards are limited in double precision floating point. They're perfectly capable of doing it, you just can't have it very quickly, so sorry, you gotta pay more money for it. GP100 doesn't have this restriction, so its FP64 performance is half of its FP32, but it also can accelerate FP16, and FP16, as you might imagine, is twice as fast as FP32, because you can take your FP32 register and put 2 FP16 operations in it, hey presto, you get double the performance. And that is another thing that gets either completely eliminated, like you get zero benefit, you just have to put your 16-bit floating point number into your 32-bit, FP32 register and run it at normal speeds on a consumer GPU, or like it doesn't work at all. It's just not even supported. So GP100 is unique in that respect, and that's why I got it. I'm building a new home lab, and I want to do some machine learning and honestly, some transformers and some Gen AI, and I want to mess around with it. I want to mess around with the models locally and see what I can make them do. See if I can get them to do anything actually useful, instead of just the, pie in the sky bullshit that everyone says that they're capable of doing, or, generating spam, which I think is the only current actual use case for Gen AI, is just generating spam. So I got this, and I actually picked up the 3060 for a pair of GPUs for my new home lab, and that was the basis of doing the 3060 video. I'm like, I'll just, I'll do a quick review on it. A quick review on it and show how it performs. Maybe throw some machine learning benchmarks in there to see how it is. And I'm like, well, why not benchmark it against this Quadro as well, since it's going to be living in the same machine? Okay, so why not just, benchmark it against the old Titan Maxwell as well, because I have that. So it spiraled out of control. It's currently on hold, It's not going to be the next video. I'm going to try and finish it at some point, but no guarantees. By the way, the 9 people who are watching right now, loyal viewers, the next full-length video is going to be this one. So, look forward to that. I know I've said in the past it's going to be the Revo 128. I'm going to do the Voodoo graphics first, and then it'll be the Revo 128, so that I can have comparison benchmarks. So, I think it'll be cool. Should be a fun time. Couple of fun, easy videos to produce. I've got hardware and software ready to go that I know works with the Voodoo graphics, and that machine should work perfectly with the Riva as well. So, it'll be fun. It'll be a good time. Anyway, this card, like I said, was gonna get its own dedicated video, and then the 3060 video tanked, and I'm like, I need to make simpler videos. So, it's getting a stream. We're gonna see how it does on a few things. So where does this fall in terms of performance? Well, it's somewhere between a 1080 Ti and a Titan XP. Well, sometimes. If you're asking it to do, a heavy shading work that needs a lot of power, it falls somewhere between a 1080 and a 1080 Ti. But if you can use its render output pipelines, of which it has 128, thanks to that HBM, it's pretty darn fast. It's pretty darn fast. So, let's run some stuff on this. I was going to do 3D Mark. Ta-da! So, like other Pascal cards, it doesn't have any RT cores. It has no real-time ray tracing acceleration, but its driver allows it to do ray tracing on its shader cores. So we can run Port Royal on this. The first thing we can do with it is subject it to some pain and make it do ray tracing. We'll be mean to it first. So let's pull up some Port Royal, see what it does. It's not going to be amazing. It's not going to be amazing. I think we're going to get in the teens, maybe? It'd be fun to see it work, though. I'm currently not undervolting it or anything. We'll see how it does. See if the fan gets too annoying. But it should be fine. So i8386SX says Quadro or FirePro equals $signs, and to an extent, the older cards aren't worth anything, right? Like the really old Quadros, the really old FirePros aren't worth a thing. There's a couple of cards, a couple of older Quadros that are, you can basically mod them into G-forces, and they happen to coincide with very rare G-forces. So then those Quadros end up costing a lot of money. This card right now is expensive because it is kind of a machine learning wunderkind, and that's the big hot thing right now, so that's why its price is a bit inflated over what I think it really should be. As far as like a daily driver GPU, it's fine. I played around with it in VR for a bit. Having 16 gigs of VRAM in VR is quite nice. But, it's let down a lot by its shading horsepower and its relative low, total board power. No, it's not even going to do it, is it? Nope, it's not even going to do it. So that is apparently a feature exclusive to the GeForce driver. And this will not ray trace. That's funny. That's great. I love it. Alright, so let's run some Titan Sionis. This should run. This should run. Compatibility Madness says, I like HBM memory over FP16 on Quadro P100. Smiley face. Well, you get both here. You get the HBM and the FP16. Let's see what it does. Oh, so I ended up trying to run the machine learning benchmarks in Windows, first of all, which was my first mistake. They're all run in Python. They use the PyTorch framework. They're all really meant to be run in Linux or some kind of, POSIX compliant OS. So I ended up building a fresh Linux install for this machine for that video. You can see how it quickly bloomed out of control. And then, I'm like, hey, what if I compare the 3060 to the 6650 XT? That'd be kind of neat, right? Like, they cost about the same. You get a used 3060 for about $250. You get a new 6650 XT for about $250. Might make a fun comparison. You can see, like, it just turned into an 8-headed Hydra, and I quickly lost the plot in doing the video. I'll probably finish it eventually, but it's well on the back burner at this point. Well on the back burner. A blower cooler is surprisingly quiet. It's very effective. It's also helped by the fact that it has like a 225 watt TBP. It's ridiculous. It's very efficient for Pascal. But yeah, performance is not the most amazing. Like, it's okay, but it's not amazing. So the test system here is my PCI Express test bench, 5800X3D, 32 gigs of RAM. This is a recent upgrade for this machine. Still running on the A320 motherboard, so we're at PCI Express 3.0 instead of 4.0. Yeah, you can see the giant power supply up here, the Hydro Platinum X from FSP. When my EVGA power supply died, I'm like, I don't want that to happen again. So I'm gonna overbuy my power supply. And it's been working great so far. Plenty of power. Plenty of power. .3D Mark is currently doing a lot on the C drive. What you doing, 3D Mark? There you go. The worst thing you can do to a machine, if you want it to like run successfully and like be consistent, turn it off for a month and then turn it back on. This thing has been, oh my god. This all morning, it's just been a complete pain in the butt. Yes, compatibility madness, hang on. Hey, welcome back, Ryzen 9 3900 XT. We are doing some baseline benchmarks on this Quadro GP100. So, just to kind of get an idea of like what it's capable of, I'm gonna have to go look up some benchmarks on 1080 Ti's, because it's basically the 1080 Ti's configuration. It's not quite the same die. It's got a bunch more render output pipelines, and of course 16 gigs of HBM, which is kind of a big deal. But it runs at a way lower TDP. Sorry, TBP, total board power, up 225 watts, which is not a lot. Yeah, exactly. i8386SX is my all-in-one Lenovo. Was very angry when I turned it on a few days ago. It hasn't been turned on since August 2023. Yeah, I bet it was angry. Oh. Well, the price is a bit of sticker shock. Ryzen9 says, wait, HBM, I might pick one up. The price is a little bit of sticker shock, and, you know, it's a Quadro, so it runs Quadro drivers. And the first thing we tried was Port Royal, which does not work, because ray tracing on Pascal is enabled through the GeForce drivers, not the Quadro drivers. All right. So let's see how we did. Of course, this is going to compare to other Quadro GP100s. Is it really the only one? Is it really the only one that's gone through 3D Mark? God, I hope not. Result file contained no scores. Thanks. Good. It's working well. Let's try it again, see if it works. There we go. Yeah, so we're below a 2023 budget PC, unfortunately. It's just not that fast anymore. Okay, so there's our detailed scores. Let's look at score of 93, 96. I want to see what the let's see what the FPS are though. This is a fantastic website. Let's see. Past all the tryhards here. Here we go. That's a mega overclocks on these. Wow, 2.5 gigahertz. That is impressive. We're looking at what? A graphics score of about 11,926 or so? Yeah, 11,926. So where did we get? Graphics score 8143. So not great. Not great. Not great. See how that compares to a 1080 non-TI. Just one GPU, please. Yeah, it's a little closer to just a 1080 non-TI, which is unfortunate. Super unfortunate. So that's what we're dealing with. Yeah, so the whole point of this thing is it's a machine learning card. Ryzen 9 says, I know people don't like it, but mining on this must be fast. And yeah, the reason prices are the way they are is it's a phenomenal machine learning card, right? And with 16 gigs of HBM, yeah, there's definitely cryptocurrencies that work very nicely on this thing. Absolutely. So let's run some games on it. So we know we're about the performance level of a 1080 non-TI. Let's see, compatibility madness wanted, GPU-Z. See if y'all can see that. So we're at 3584 shaders, 128 ROPs, 225 texture mapping units, and 16 gigs of HBM2. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of a ridiculous card. Run some heaven on this real quick so we can see what the clock gets up to. Whoops. I need 1600 by 900 for that. Whoopsies. Hang on. Hold this up to 1080p. Sorry, can't read anything. Well, there we go. Not even 1700 megahertz. 1556. It's more than the advertised boost clock, right? 1448. Still not great though. Oh, I do have the curve on this one. Okay. Yeah, so it should stay there basically forever. HC asks, can you do Gen AI with a 3090? Yes, and Ampere, being one of the compute dies from the compute architectures from NVIDIA, has a trick up its sleeve for that, where it actually gets double FP32 performance versus like Turing. It's a good option, yeah. Ampere is a good compute card. It makes sense, that's what they were designed for. Like DMC says, oh my, Quadro. Yes. Yeah, right? Compatibility madness. It's 730 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. Nice. Yeah. Ryzen 9 says my 1660 Ti can do 1750 megahertz at 0.7 millivolts. It's also one process node newer than this, because this is on 16 nanometer. Right, or is it on the 14? Which one did they put this on? Does not say. Don't remember. Oh, yeah, 16 nanometer. Alright, so let's play some games. The sad part is, like, yeah, it's HBM, and like, yeah, that's a lot of bandwidth for, you know, 2017, but you know, my 3080 could do, you know, a terabyte a second via overclocked the VRAM. And that was just plain old GDDR6X. So let's play some Cyberpunk on it. And yeah, I think you're right. Let's update later. Just play the game. I think you're right. It's 3584, I think, is a regular 1080 non-TI, which makes sense why we're getting that kind of performance. I was wooed by the number of texture mapping units. It's just so many. Is this launching? No, it's not launching. Go. Yeah, so yeah, 3584 shaders that's a 1080 Ti. Unfortunately, because of the low total board power, we get 1080 non-TI performance out of it, unfortunately. Theoretically, if we found something that could really stress out the render output pipelines, maybe we can get some more performance out of it, because it's got just so many. It's got so many. Blake DMC asks, can it run Crysis? It absolutely can. Let's go here. I don't know where I am in this game anymore. All I do is benchmark. Yeah, if the clock speed was better, you know, it'd be pretty decent. Oh, you know what? I think I turned on. I bet I turned on ray tracing overdrive because I was benchmarking. Yes, path tracing's on. Here you go, Cyberpunk on the GP100 with path tracing. Whoa, 4 FPS. Yeah, baby. So Port Royal crashed. We tried to run it, but Cyberpunk is like, yeah, whatever. Yikes. Alright, so let's put this in something a little more useful. High settings, no upscaling. That's better. Yeah, it's not so bad. Yeah, it wasn't in 07, it wasn't super common to have 16 gigs of RAM in your computer, let alone your GPU. Blake DMC says if we take a card like Quadro GP100 or 1080 Ti to 2007, would they be like 16 gigs of VRAM on a GPU? Blake really wants me to run Crysis on this. I don't know if I have Crysis installed, but I can probably grab the demo. My GOG client is currently doing some silly things, so I don't know if I'll be able to install it through GOG. Like I said, the worst thing you want to do to a computer is like turn it off for a month. Everything loses its mind. What's our resolution? So we're at high settings, and we've got to be at 1080p. Yeah, 1080p, that makes sense. 1080p high settings, 60 to 80 FPS. Yeah, that's about right. Let's go grab the Crysis demo. We'll run Crysis on it. Do I have... First of all, do I have Crysis already installed on here? Probably not. No. Let's see if GOG is gonna play ball here. Seven gigs, that's not bad. We'll just let that download. Alright. So while that's doing that, I'll open up my library and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Run a quick benchmark on Soter. See how she does. Ryzen 9 asks, does this GPU have Windows XP drivers? No, the newest GPU you can run under Windows XP is Maxwell, if you mod the drivers, because the NVIDIA made the GTX 960 compatible with XP, which means you can basically just put in the PCI Express IDs for any other Maxwell card, and it should work just fine. Graphics, and let's run a benchmark. 1080p highest. Go. Yeah, compatibility meta says you could do Crysis at 8K, maybe 16K, maxed out with possibly anti-aliasing enabled, and still not run out of VRAM. Also, the 5800X3D is an amazing CPU for Crysis. Well, we're going to find out in a minute. Yeah, Blake DMC says, oh wow, 7 gigs for a heavy game. Those were the days. Indeed, indeed. That would have been so nice. Where games never got bigger than 7 gigabytes. Ah. She's warm. Get some hot air coming out of the end of this thing. But the fan's not bad, though. That blower design was really pretty decent. Although again, it's cooling a 225 watt card, so it makes sense. I'm kind of excited to try Crysis at like 4K. Hello, Dylan Cole has joined the chat. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Right now we're doing pretty normal things to a Quadro GP100, but I anticipate we'll do some horrific things to it later. We'll see. Yeah, that's fair. Blake DMC says, like, I have a 4 terabyte hard drive to put most of my games on, and I'm still scared of running out of space. You have no idea how many hard drives I have. So, one of the reasons the 3060 video got so out of control for me, I finally cataloged all the B-roll that I recorded for it. Between game benchmarks and just the beauty shots, like with my camera. 475 gigabytes of B-roll. It's too much. It's too much. It's why I abandoned the video. It's one of several reasons I abandoned the video. Oh, HC says, gotta go. Have a great night. Glad you could join us. Hope you have a good one. So there we go. 111 FPS in Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p. So not amazing, but let's see. Let's see what it does at 4K. This should be bad. 4K highest settings, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. That's pretty respectable. So that's the power of the render output pipelines coming into play there. Gutbomb says, RTX on. You just missed us running Cyberpunk with path tracing on this poor thing. At 4 FPS. At the moment, it is running Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the built-in benchmark, at 4K highest. It's doing pretty well, considering its power deficit. Skilla has joined the chat. Welcome! Good to have you here. Skilla says, I just watched a video about building a DOS-based BBS bulletin board service platform as a cloud-native service in Kubernetes. What is the world coming to? I think, honestly, I think that's actually a really legitimate use of Kubernetes. There aren't a lot of legitimate uses of Kubernetes, but that's one of them. This is doing pretty well. This is surprisingly capable at 4K. I guess I shouldn't be totally surprised. 128 render output pipelines, even if they're only running at 1500 megahertz, like that's still a lot of pixels it can put on the screen. Compatibility madness says I'm old. I see K8S and I think AMD dual Athlon 64s. Yup. That's a very legitimate use of K8s. 45 FPS. That's not terrible. That's not terrible. I'm kind of surprised. I think we should run some more stuff at high resolution on this thing. Put those ROPs to use. So this finished downloading Crysis, so let's run some Crysis. Compatibility Madness is going to want me to install the benchmarking tool. I'm sure of it. I just want to see if it'll run. That looks like a nope. Come on. There we go. See if it applied the correct compatibility to it. Oh, saying no. I don't think the problem is the card. It's mostly Windows 10. Welcome back, Skilla. It's good to see you here. Skilla says, "Ah, yes, glad to, and yes, glad to finally catch a live stream again. Yeah, watch us torture this poor Quadro. Make it do things it was not designed to do. Speaking of not designed to do, let's see if it'll run Quake 2 RTX. Because why not? I know when I had my 1080 Ti, it would run this. For about 10 minutes, and it would crash. No ray tracing capable GPU found. Yeah, it's kind of what I figured. Kind of what I figured. Doesn't like it. Yeah, this is on 22H2 and it's not great. I don't love the last version of Windows 10. It's not a fun time. What else can we run on this thing? I really do want to get Crysis working on it though. It might not like the Quadro drivers. Let's see. Hmm. Skilla asks, have you tortured yourself with Windows 11 yet? I have not. I mean, sorta. Like, I have a virtual machine that runs it, and I don't like it. So I'm trying to keep it off of my primary machines as long as I can. Let's get drivers. Yeah, Quadro RTX GP100. You can see this is the last thing I did. We'll reinstall the drivers. Yeah. Blake DMC says the funny thing about Windows 10 long-term servicing, Internet of Things, is that it'll still get support until 2032 with no issues. That is funny. That is funny. Could also be a major advantage. The thing I wonder, though, right, is like, you take Starfield, for example. I was running quite happily on 20H2 Windows 10 for a while. On my main gaming machine. No issues. Really anything that I was doing. And then of course Starfield comes along and it's like, you need 22H2. So I think the thing was installed in a non-EFI boot partition, so 22H2 needs EFI. Something like that. So I had to wipe out my whole Windows install, reinstall 22H2, and now I have to deal with all of its quirks. It is not as stable as 20H2 was. It's really annoying. Yeah, I'm not I've basically pared down my life and the amount of things that I need Windows for. Pretty much like this stream. This is running on my Windows 10 machine. And this machine also does my, when I'm in VR, it's on this machine. This is what my Vario Aero is plugged into. And that's pretty much it at this point. Like, most of my daily web surfing and video watching, Discord chatting, stuff like that, I do on my Mac Mini, which I also don't super love. I'm much more of a classic macOS girl, and I've never really gotten used to the quirks and the inconsistencies in macOS 10, and there's still several that are still there in the OS nowadays. God, what, 20 years later? It's fine, and then I'll go and I'll try and do something, and it just behaves in a way that I don't expect it to, and it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating. I'm working on a way to move all of my daily non-3D gaming stuff over to Haiku, honestly. I want to just daily drive Haiku as my primary OS for as many things as I possibly can. It might mean moving video editing, and I'm pretty sure it's going to mean moving video editing back over to Windows. I can live with that. But everything else would be done on Haiku. And that would be just great. I love Haiku. Let's do a clean install and go. Blake DMC says it'd be funny to have you DDU just for Crisis. Well, we're gonna do the thing. Yeah. Blake DMC says I like older Macs because you can actually fix them, unlike the newer ones. So my primary laptop when I'm away from home and I need a computer with me is a mid-2012 MacBook Pro. It's fantastic, honestly. It's dual-core hyper-threaded Ivy Bridge, and the battery is still good, the screen's still great. It doesn't have the stupid butterfly keyboard. The keyboard is rock solid. I love it. It's a great laptop. It's stuck on macOS Catalina, but I don't really care. Most of the things I need to do on it it just does. Yeah, the fortunate part, Skylus' problem is I can live without macOS but not Windows. So the fortunate part is a lot of gaming on Linux has gotten very good. Thanks entirely to Valve and the work that they've been doing on Proton. You know, Proton's been fantastic for Linux gaming. And once they figure out Steam VR in Linux, I'm gone. Like, that's the last thing I need. You know, that's literally the last thing I need Windows for is Steam VR. Because this whole stream that you're watching is all being run in OBS, which runs phenomenally on Linux. It's no problem. It's just open source software. Like, NVIDIA drivers aren't amazing on Linux, but like they're functional. In fact, another brick in the wall of why the 3060 video didn't come out is I actually compared Linux performance between the 6650 XT and the 3060 across a couple of games in Linux, using at the time, honestly, multiple installs of Linux just to have like only AMD drivers installed or only NVIDIA drivers installed. I was just using Pop! OS, so I had one install that was, you know, the NVIDIA proprietary install, and then the other install was the AMD Intel install. But like, the NVIDIA install was fine. It ran fine. It ran games fine. It ran, you know, Wayland or X Windows or whatever the heck it was. I think it was X386. You know, the desktop environment ran it just fine. Linux is really getting there, honestly. But for me, like, I want a way more minimal OS. Like, that's why I want to do all my stuff in Haiku if I can. Because it's so small, and it does so little, and I love that. I want an OS that does the minimum necessary for me to get what I need to do done. I don't want AI in my operating system. I don't want nags and pop-ups and advertisements. No thanks. No thank you. Oh god, Steam's trying to launch while it's installing the driver. Steam, just stop. Just stop, Steam. Just stop. Rise9 says Haiku is Linux. It is not Linux. Haiku is not Linux. Haiku is it's an open source re-implementation of BOS from back in the 90s. And BOS was a unique operating system. It ran on a microkernel. It had its own development frameworks, and then it had a POSIX layer inside it where you could run, you know, Unixy applications. And it's from that shell, basically that husk, that Haiku was born. And the cool part about the Haiku project, honestly, is like the 32-bit version of Haiku aims to keep binary compatibility with original BOS, like release 4.5, I think. And that's immense. Like trying to run a modern OS, right, on modern hardware that still has full 100% binary compatibility with an OS from 1997. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. It has a ton of limitations, right? Like you can't access more than 4 gigs of RAM because it's 32-bit. It's compiling with ancient compilers, 20-year-old compilers at this point. You know, developing for it is kind of a chore because you're looking at 20-year-old, 25-year-old, you know, development patterns. But it works. And then of course the 64-bit version is, you know, new compilers. It runs Linux software like a charm, but it's not Linux. It doesn't run the Linux kernel. Its native apps don't run glibc. It's its own thing, and I kind of love that. Oof. Skilla says Visual Studio is about 50 gigabytes now. 50 gigabytes. An IDE, an integrated development environment. Yeah. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. 50 gigabytes. And I bet you that 50 gigabytes doesn't have all of the libraries installed. I bet you could go into the installer and put in more stuff. Way back in the chat, Ryzen9 said, "Ew, Mac." It's a machine. It's a tool. It's like any other. The problem is it's not the right tool that I want. It's close, but it's not quite there. It still gets in my way, and it's still frustrating to use sometimes. Okay, we've got an install. I'm gonna reboot this thing. And hopefully, we can play some games on it, or some more games. Clarge on OnePlus says, how much of that 50 gigs for Visual Studio is just for tracking what you do? Oh. Remember when getting on the internet was expensive? It was so expensive that no one dared do it unless they absolutely had to. I'm not saying that those days were better, but there were definitely things that no one ever dared do. I really need to upgrade the boot SSD on this thing. It's just terrible. Most of the time, nobody sees this. This thing just, chugs away in the background while I'm working on a video and running benchmarks. But, and those times, I don't really care how long it takes to boot up. Running it on stream, it's a little embarrassing. Okay, let's see if this will do. And I guess this is gonna, it's gonna say it doesn't have an RTX capable, or no ray tracing capable GPU found. I'm pretty sure it's just doing a simple driver check. And it just doesn't know what a GP100 is. I'm pretty sure. Let's see about Crisis. That's pretty good. Clarge on OnePlus says, it's only Proton if it comes from the Valve region of Linux, otherwise it's just sparkling wine. So true. And a really brilliant pun. Thank you. I appreciate the puns. Skilla says the tracking part's probably less than a gig. It's the most efficient code is to not make it so slow that people start complaining. Yes, important to keep your tracking code so out of sight that no one thinks it's there. Definitely very legit and what the users want to have. Oh boy, alright. What do we got in? I'm gonna run on this thing. I have some games installed on here. Oh, I have Ratchet and Clank on here. Where's my gamepad? Meh. Hell yeah. Let's see how this thing handles Ratchet and Clank. That's gonna be funny. I picked this one up not entirely for the 3060 episode, but like, you know, as I start to benchmark more modern cards, I'm like, I need to keep up with the games that people are playing, so I gotta keep buying games. This one I do actually mean to like actually play through because it looks pretty fun. Never had PlayStation back home. I was a Saturn girl, but apparently Ratchet and Clank is quite a beloved franchise. That's what the kids tell me. I have no idea what I have this set to. I did not check in the settings. Shoot. Alright. So of course the cool thing about this, right, the slick feature with this game is that the load times are instantaneous if you put it on an NVMe. And I gotta say, pretty much, yeah. Not sure why we don't have Afterburner in the corner. I'll be honest. All the technology that's in the current generation consoles, the only thing that really makes me excited about them is games like this, where you have artists, I guess I'd point it this way, games like this, where you have artists like making new stuff, just doing art, and having all this incredibly powerful horsepower to realize it, and you know, like make it appear real. I'm not such a fan of like recreating dirt in high realism. Like photorealism in a like military shooters, like not even close to what I care about in high-end PC hardware. I want to see what new materials, what new surfaces, what new shaders you're going to use this hardware for. Like I want to see the alien skin. I want to see it rendered in high definition in 4K. I want to see the impossible made possible. That's what I want to see. It might work, like, Blake DMC still really wants to run Crysis on this thing. Like, it might work if I, like, get this hardware running on Windows 7, which it does. There are Windows 7 drivers for this motherboard, and running Windows 7 on it is a goal of mine. I don't know if there's Windows 7 drivers for this GPU. I have no idea. But if they exist, they should work with Crysis. Honestly. Like, they're going to be old enough that Crysis should work just fine. So this is all live in engine. None of this has been a pre-rendered cutscene. So all this loading, all this crazy loading, instantaneous. It is a really impressive technology showcase. Analog pad is a little twitchy in this. Looking pretty good, honestly. Wish I had a frame rate counter in the corner, though. It's definitely just Afterburner or RivaTuner statistics server. Just, like, having a bad time, because, it totally works in this game. That's how I got the benchmark numbers for the 3060 video. That's not bad. Particles! Yay! Turn X. Sure. Alright. Where do you want me to throw it? Probably right there? Yeah, look at that. Hooray. Most of my benchmarking has been done through up to this point in the game. Just benchmarking the opening cinematics because they're really repeatable. Really easily repeatable. I gotta say though, it's running pretty nicely. I need to get RivaTuner on here though, so let's zoop out of there. What is going on with Afterburner? Oh, it's not even running. Come on. There we go. Fan ramps up because I've got my own fan curve on it. So let's go through the opening cinematic, see what it does. What are my settings? What are my settings? God, that's small. 1080p. No upscaling. And high preset. That's not bad. .1080p, no upscaling, high preset. Not terrible. Yeah, Blake TMC says, don't forget, Steam has a built-in FPS counter and Afterburner doesn't view. That's correct. That is correct. You access that in the settings under in-game options. You can turn it on, change its color, change the corner it appears in. It's not bad. So let's do the opening cinematic real quick and see what this thing does. Sure. Yep. Where was that load time? Honestly, probably buried in the logos, if I had to guess. It's not terrible. 80 FPS? Ooh. 43 FPS when we get the bokeh. The screen blur. That's not so great. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's in the 60 FPS area most of the time, at least in the opening cutscene. Oh my gosh, for real. Blake DMC says, I'm just waiting for a 4 or 8 terabyte 2.5 inch SSD to be affordable. Yeah, that would be really nice. Affordable and reliable. Man, SSD reliability has been real poor lately. So that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm gonna cut this. This is not terrible. What else? Oh, we can run Starfield on it. And torture it with some Starfield. This should be interesting. I feel like Starfield is mostly TMU and ROP bound rather than shading bound. But we'll see. I have been playing through this in my free time. I found the best way to enjoy it is using a shader mod that gets rid of the gross green-brown filter over everything. I don't know why they felt the need to put a brown shader over everything. The art in the game is fantastic. Like the material work and the texture work, top notch. Except you can't see any of it under this stupid filter. Let's see where that is my benchmark save. I've got a quick save on Titan. Sure, let's go there. Yeah. Yeah, Raz9 says the Samsung 512 gig drives are 20 to 30 bucks on eBay. I have been buying SSDs used on eBay because it's a reliable way to get reasonable drives. Because used older Samsung drives, just as fast and more reliable than current Samsung drives. It's really sad. This is not bad at all. 45 FPS indoors here. So let's, oh right, this is low grav. I'm gonna go downstairs, there we go. Where's the front door here? I can get out of this station. It was just, busy murdering some people. It's no big deal. That is the exit, I believe. Let's hop out on the surface and see what it looks like. Oh, cycle the lock. There we go. Now that's chunky. Just feels immediately sore. What are we running for settings? Let's see. Borderless full screen, so... What did Windows reset my display to? I don't remember. Oh, we are running at 1080p. Oofies. 45 FPS at 1080p, not great. But we are running... mostly medium settings. Am I doing any upscaling? No. So it's 1080p native, medium settings. That's not awful. I mean, Starfield is just super not optimized. Let's see, if we do FSR. Hey, FSR frame gen. Let's see what that does. How many fake frames per second can I get on this? Yo, that's not bad. 60 FPS. Let's fast travel back to the ship. It's sad. It's sad, honestly. Like, Micron used to be like the best. It was the best RAM, the best flash you could get. It's sad that they've fallen so far these days. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Hey, Eric's Edge is here. Hello, Eric. How's it going? We're doing things to a Quadro. Right now I'm on the Moon Titan in Starfield. It's running okay. I've got FSR 3 frame gen turned on, which the Quadro's Pascal. Pascal has no problem with FSR 3 frame gen. Getting a reasonable boost in the frame rate. Stuff looks pretty good. The big problem for FSR 3 in this game, I think, was get in the ship, the HUD, when you're flying around in space. Because I think that whole area is marked to not run in frame gen. Let's see. I'm curious. How awful is that going to look? Eric's Edge says rebuilding an SE30. Nice. I love my Mac Plus, but honestly, if I had a black and white compact Mac, it'd be an SE30. They're just so good. Okay, that's not terrible. If there's tearing around the UI, I can't see it. The circle in the middle always runs at 30 FPS. I don't know why. Some weird design decision that they made. But like the UI looks fine. I'm not seeing it tear at half frame rate or anything, which is usually a hallmark of FSR 3. Not terrible. Not terrible. It's kind of funny how much people really hated DLSS 3 frame generation. Just because NVIDIA like restricted it to the 40 series cards. And then like AMD is like, hey, here's our, you know, GPU agnostic frame generation library, FSR 3. Everybody's like, hey, this is pretty cool. Oh, I just don't understand why they limited it to the 40 series. It just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. The only reason I have Forspoken on here, the only reason is for benchmarking. It's awful. It's awful. God, what a terrible game. So, let's see. I don't know, I'm kind of out of things to do on this thing. all the machine learning stuff that you can do with it is in Linux, and I think I wiped the Linux drive for this thing, which was silly. But yeah, anything else y'all want to see? I'm sorry I couldn't get Crysis running on it. Oh, Rosen9 says FSR is epic. EPYC. I suppose, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's the parts of the demo that I've played for doing benchmarking it just doesn't sell it to me. Oh, Ryzen 9 wants to see Beam NG. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I've got Beam on here. I thought I had Beam on here. I don't have Beam on here. I have Beam on this machine. Oh, I thought I did. 48 gigs, we're not installing that during stream. I know I've benchmarked Beam before, but apparently I must have deleted it, I guess. Sorry. Ryzen 9 says, I mean, you could run SpeedSys. Well, there's going to be some SpeedSys in the future. If you missed the start of the video, I've been working on for like literally the last month, a video looking at the 3060, which is currently in this computer right now, because I'm in between graphics cards at the moment. Looking at the 3060, comparing it at used prices, about 250 bucks used, not a terrible price, versus the 6650 XT, which is about $250 new. It's kind of an interesting value flip, right? Because usually, like for like, AMD is the better value, but, you know, of course, used graphics cards are almost always the better value. So, like, what if you have a new AMD card versus a used NVIDIA card? How does that work? So that was the basis of the video. And I bought this 3060 to use for machine learning because I am building a new home lab based around one of these, a Haswell Z. I think this is 10 cores and 20 threads. I'm going to throw this card here, this Quadro, and the 3060 in it, and use it for machine learning acceleration. So I figured I'd do a video on it before I, you know, built the home lab. And it just mushroomed from there. So comparing these two cards and gaming performance, I'm like, okay, so maybe I'll run through like the machine learning benchmarks. There's a suite of machine learning benchmarks on GitHub that you can run. They're pretty easy to run. Documentation could be better. Startup guide could be better. But I did finally get them to run. Turns out they only really work on Linux. So I built a Linux install for the 3060, and then I'm like, well, why not check how the 6650 runs in Linux? So I built a Linux install for the 6650 as well. Tested games under Linux as well with both cards, and then did the machine learning benchmarks on the 3060, and that was about the time when I realized I've done too much. I generated 475 gigabytes of B-roll that I was going to have to sift through in editing. And that was when I decided, you know, that was like basically Wednesday this week, where I'm trying to go through this B-roll, I'm trying to make sense of it all, trying to put a story together, trying to make a script out of it, that I decided to can the 3060 video. So this whole stream, why are we looking at this Quadro? This whole stream is basically, these are graphics cards that are probably not going to get their own dedicated video on the channel. But I still wanted to talk about them because they're still interesting. This one is especially interesting. given that it has 16 gigs of HBM2 versus, you know, anything you would have seen from Pascal otherwise. Let me pull that up real quick so y'all can see. Change the resolution on this so y'all can read this. There we go. GPU-Z. So you can see, yeah, it's basically a 1080 Ti die with 16 gigs of HBM2 attached to it. And of course, because it's Pascal, that HBM2 is tied to the number of streaming multiprocessors and render output pipelines on the chip. So it has a huge number of ROPs versus a lot of GPUs from NVIDIA. Unfortunately, as you can see here in the bench cam, that's all of its power. It pulls the 70-ish watts out of the PCI Express slot, and it's got one PCI Express 8 pin for power, which is not enough for that much shading horsepower. So it's very limited in terms of clock speed. I think we saw running Heaven on this thing, it gets up to 1556. Peak clock stays there the whole time, but that's the peak clock. Not great considering like a mildly overclocked 1080 Ti gets to about 2100 megahertz. Not fantastic. But yeah, it's a weird GPU. I think it's going to be interesting to do machine learning work on. I'm a complete noob when it comes to machine learning, but I picked up this in the 3060 to get my feet wet. And yeah, this was going to have a video. I was going to like tease it as the GTX 1090 since it has 16 gigs of VRAM, but there is already a GTX 1090. It's called the Titan XP. Instead of a lot more VRAM, it has a lot more shaders and clocks, and that's what's important when you're doing graphics. So I think I'm going to end the stream there, the little hour-and-a-half quick stream about this weirdo graphics card. Unfortunately, a whole bunch of folks are filtering in right now, so I apologize. Quick stream today, y'all. But I will go ahead and switch over to the AKM. Let everybody go here. Ta-da! So yeah, very glad y'all could make it. I hope you've enjoyed the stream. It's kind of a weird format. I might do more of this in the future on, other cards that I thought might make good videos, but probably in hindsight won't. The next mainline video, hope everybody's excited. Next mainline video is going to be this little bad boy. The original Voodoo graphics. Because the immediate follow-up is the Reva 128. So that's going to be a fun pair of videos to make. And I am basically going to approach it as a pair because it's very obvious that the original Reva 128 was built as a response to this card, right? Like this is it's a multi-chip solution. It's got 60 megapixels or so. This very clearly, very proudly, NVIDIA advertised the 100 megapixels that this is capable of. Similar RAM sizes, similar API support, although no OpenGL on the Reva 128. I'm going to have to figure out how people solved that problem back in the day, because I don't remember. I never had one. And of course, not great DirectX support on the Voodoo. It'll be an interesting set of videos, but those are the next two videos coming. So hopefully y'all enjoy those. And I'm gonna sign out for the night. I hope everybody's had a good week, and I hope you continue to have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you in the next stream and or video. Alright? Where's my stop button? There it is. Have a good night, y'all. I'll catch you in the next one.